The night air in rural Georgia in the late 1840s carried a heaviness that pressed against every cabin, every field, every branch that moved under the moon. On the plantation known as Barrett Hollow, the land itself seemed to hold its breath whenever the twins stepped outside. They were 12 years old, named Leela and Iden, born minutes apart in a wooden cabin near the edge of the forest. People whispered that the pine trees tilted toward them when they passed, as if trying to listen to what their footsteps said. From the day they could walk, the overseers noticed something unusual. The twins rarely spoke, but when they did, it was in perfect sync, their voices layered like two strings plucked on one instrument. Their mother, a quiet woman who worked the loom in the weaving shed, told the others that the children had always been like this. They were born during the strange storm of 1835, a storm that split the sky with green lightning and made the horses flee their stalls. No one forgot the way the wind seemed to howl a name none of them could decipher. Leela spent most of her days picking cotton, her hands small but fast, weaving in and out of the stalks, as if they moved aside for her. Iden worked in the stables, where the horses behaved in ways that baffled even the oldest handlers. Horses that bit, kicked, or bucked for grown men would bow their heads meekly when Iden approached. More than once, he calmed a panicked animal simply by touching its neck, and it would shudder, sigh, and settle as if whatever had frightened it no longer existed. The other enslaved people watched the twins with a mixture of protectiveness and wariness. It was Mama Ruth, the oldest woman on the plantation, who first muttered that the children carried something ancient. She claimed she once saw them standing at the edge of the forest, staring into the trees as if speaking to something no one else could see. She insisted the wind around them swirled in circles and that the leaves moved without any breeze. The rumors stayed inside the quarters until the night young Caleb disappeared. Caleb was a boy of 10 who lived in the cabin next to the twins. He vanished during a night so still that the crickets refused to sing. The overseers searched the fields, the barns, the forest paths, and the creek, but no trace of him remained. The air felt wrong, as though the world had blinked and swallowed the child whole. But what chilled everyone was that Leela and Iden did not look surprised. They sat outside their cabin, their eyes distant, as if they were listening to something beneath the earth. For days after Caleb vanished, strange things began happening around the plantation. Doors opened by themselves, tools shifted positions, animals refused to step near certain areas, lantern flames bent sideways even when the air was still. Mama Ruth swore she saw footprints appear in the dirt as if an invisible child walked beside her. The overseers accused the twins of knowing more than they admitted. They questioned them for hours, demanding answers, but the children said nothing. Their silence made the overseers angrier, and the punishments grew harsher. Still, the twins showed no fear. When asked why they did not cry, they only stared ahead, their expressions calm, as though their thoughts sat far beyond the reach of the men shouting at them. Then came the night when the plantation workers heard a low chant drifting through the pines. The voice sounded childlike but layered, as if two tones moved inside one breath. The sound grew louder near the river bank, where the moon cast long silver paths across the water. Several workers went to investigate, though each step made their skin prickle with unease. Near the river, they found Leela and Iden standing knee-deep in the water, their hands raised slightly, palms open. The current around them moved in odd patterns, swirling in circles that did not match the river's natural flow. The air above the water shimmered like heat rising off a road, though the night was cool. When the adults called out to the twins, The water suddenly rushed upward, splashing high before falling flat and still. The shimmering air vanished, and the children simply walked out of the river, dripping and silent. Word spread quickly through the quarters. Some believed the twins were calling to Caleb's spirit, trying to guide him home. Others feared they were speaking to something far older and more dangerous, something that had lived in the water long before the plantation existed. The overseers, hearing the rumors, grew anxious. They discussed separating the twins, believing distance would break whatever strange force connected them. The next morning, they dragged Aiden to the stables and ordered him to work under strict watch. Leela was sent deeper into the fields, far from her brother. The workers expected the twins to cry out for each other, but they did not. Instead, a vibration rippled across the plantation. Trees trembled though there was no wind. Buckets rattled. The horses in the stable screamed and kicked so violently that one nearly broke its leg before Aiden calmed it with a single touch. Leela stopped working and looked toward the forest, her body rigid. Something pulsed through the air, like an invisible thread had been pulled taut between the two children. The overseers noticed the change and hurried to relocate Aiden again, hoping to keep them apart. But the more they separated the twins, the more the land itself seemed to protest. That night, the forest lit with flickering lights, soft and golden, drifting between the branches like fireflies made of sunlight. The enslaved families stood outside their cabins, whispering in fear. None dared approach the forest, but the twins walked toward it as if called by name. No overseer stepped forward to stop them. Even the bravest felt a pressure in their chest that held them still. The twins stepped into the forest, and the lights swirled around them. Some workers swore the trees leaned inward, creating a passage. Others claimed they saw figures in the glow, silhouettes no taller than a child, moving just beyond clear sight. Leela extended her hand, and one of the golden lights hovered above her palm before streaking upward and disappearing. The ground trembled softly beneath everyone's feet. By morning, the trees closest to the forest edge had shifted. Their trunks leaned at new angles, and their roots broke through the soil as if they had moved during the night. The overseers tried to convince themselves it was erosion or storm damage, though no storm had occurred. They questioned the children again, but the twins offered no explanations. 2 weeks later, Caleb reappeared. He emerged from the forest early in the morning, walking slowly but unharmed, his clothes untouched by mud or branches. The workers gasped when they saw him. They ran to him, touching his shoulders and hair, asking where he had been. But Caleb only said he had been with the light children. He said they protected him, and that Leela and Aiden sent them. The overseers, shaken by the boy's reappearance and strange story, tried to dismiss it as imagination, but the enslaved families looked at the twins differently from that day on. They believed the children were connected to something the land hid, something only they could see. Mama Ruth said the twins had a gift passed through bloodlines forgotten by time. She said some children came into the world with pieces of the unseen woven into their souls. She warned the overseers that forcing the children would bring consequences the land itself would deliver. The overseers ignored her, and the consequences came. A month later, the plantation's well dried overnight. The river overflowed onto the lower fields, though there had been no rain. Horses refused to approach the barn unless Aiden stood beside them. Tools rusted in a single night. Lamps burned out no matter how often the oil was replaced. The fields bore cotton that grew in tangled, unnatural patterns, curling toward the twins' cabin. The plantation owner, Mr. Barrett, who had been away during much of this, returned furious. He demanded the overseers stop the nonsense stories and threatened severe punishment if they did not regain control. He ordered the twins taken to the main house for questioning. But when they attempted to seize the children, the sky darkened instantly despite the midday sun. A cold wind moved through the fields, carrying a sound that felt like a whisper just behind every ear. The workers dropped to their knees, covering their heads. The horses broke free from their posts and ran wildly. The twins stood calm in the center of the chaos, their eyes fixed on the forest. The whispering grew louder, forming a hum that vibrated through every bone. Then, as quickly as it began, the wind stopped, the sky brightened, the noise vanished. Mr. Barrett fled the plantation within days, claiming the land was cursed. The plantation began to empty as overseers quit, and workers were sold elsewhere. But the twins and their mother remained until the land was eventually abandoned. Years later, travelers passing through the old plantation grounds spoke of seeing two children walking along the tree line, their outlines faint, as if made of mist and memory. Some claimed the forest glowed softly at night, its branches whispering in two voices at once. Whether the twins were guardians, wanderers between worlds, or simply children born with a connection no one understood, the people who lived near Barrett Hollow would never forget the season when 12-year-old enslaved twins walked across the Georgia soil and made the land itself speak in ways no one could explain.